Hello, so glad to have you with us today. I'm Lou Ann Fulmer. Imagine for a moment that your money could talk. What would it be telling you? Would it tell you that you need to save a little bit more money before you actually retire? So many people are worried about not having saved enough for retirement. But what about saving too much for retirement? Isn't that crazy? Could there even be such a thing? But you don't want to save so much and spend so little that you never really enjoy your retirement years. We're going to talk through that balancing act today with Andrew on what your money would say. So here's the phone number you need to remember, 800-848-8768. Again, 800-848-8768. You may call Andrew for a complimentary visit. You may call him to have an over-the-phone conversation. This is all complimentary. And remember, you can always find us online anytime at swan-capital.com. A big hello to you, Andrew.
Hey, glad to be with you today.
Thank you. So I know you're a book reader, okay?
I love books.
What's the last book that you've read recently?
I'm actually reading a really good book that I highly recommend. It talks about the psychology of money is the title. And it just has all these witty stories. It actually talks about how, like, Bernie Madoff, even when he was actually in a legal business, he was making $50 million to $100 million a year, and that wasn't enough for him.
Oh my gosh.
And it talks about all these witty stories about how someone that was a janitor gave $10 million away when he died versus someone that was in the financial background died penniless. And so it's just all these great parallels that you can learn from. So I love books. I mean, the two things that can change your life are the books that you read and the people that you meet.
Oh, that's so true. I wish I need to read more books. I definitely do. But I want to bring up this book that is written by Bill Perkins. He wrote Die with Zero. Okay, he says he has an equation for anyone who wants to retire comfortably, but leaving too much money that you didn't get to spend is what we don't want to do. He says you need to multiply your annual expenses by how many more years you expect to live. So that's hypothetical, obviously. And then you multiply it by 0.7. And supposedly that's the minimum amount you need to retire comfortably. So I don't know. It's a little bit different than the 4%.
The title's catchy.
Yeah.
I mean, the title's definitely catchy, but I definitely believe in redundancies. I mean, my clients, a lot of them are pilots, and they believe in redundancies too. and I help my clients spin down their assets if that's their wish. But we don't want to barely make it to the finish line. I barely made it at the very end of my life with $0. Maybe one last dollar, at least something left behind.
Any problems with this formula? What would be some numbers that we need to have a handle on how to help us retire comfortably?
Well, I think what is really important is to make sure first you know what you want and need in retirement. Many times when I sit down with families, they have actually never went through a spending plan. And that's what we give every single family is a copy of our spending plan, which is a really nice one page that goes through what you plan on spending in retirement and what are you spending now. And it shows the parallel of what may fall off before retirement. Maybe you think your mortgage will be paid off by then. Well, you can put 0 in the mortgage column and you can look at it and say, all right, I'm going to need probably 80% or more of what I'm spending now. When you stop working, not all these expenses magically fall away. Or when I've actually heard some of the most funniest things that clients thought. They thought that when they became 65 that their tax rate went lower. And I said, no, that's not anywhere. So it's one, understanding what you're going to need. Second, understanding what you have, which is all your pensions and Social Securities in the future, which again, our one page has all of that. And then it's my job to say, all right, what is the number in between to fill that gap? And maybe that Die to Zero book is onto something, but you have to have that right amount to fill the gap. And that is unique to each and every family. And it's not something you want to just, again, I hope I make it. I hope I spend it down to 0 on the dot. You have to have some redundancies built in there too.
Right. Okay. So a big part of this idea behind dying with 0 is figuring out your priorities when it comes to your legacy. I know you talk about legacy, estate planning all the time. Tell us how you approach this when you're building that income strategy for your clients. And some things have changed with the inheritance laws.
Well, Luann, we start off by asking a question that maybe clients have never thought about before. We say on a scale from 0 to 10, 10 being every breath I take. It is really important for me to leave money behind. And 0 or 1 saying that I want my last check to bounce. I want to die with 0. How important is it for you to leave money behind? Well, if you answer less than 5 or less, that gives me a permission slip to spin down your assets and try to maximize that retirement income for you for the rest of your life. Now, if you say, Andrew, actually 5 and beyond, if you answer an 8, that tells me that I need to start actually looking at the wealth that you may never spend and start actually building a transition plan of taking your hard-earned assets and shifting it to the next generation or the following generation after that in the most tax-free and tax-efficient way. And that's why we're setting up Roth IRAs for grandchildren and children of clients, so we can start to shift assets that would otherwise be taxable from their RMD and shifting it to tax-free investments for their children and grandchildren. And that's why it's so important to have an estate planning attorney on our team to make sure that we're actually not actually hurting our children and our grandchildren, but actually throwing fuel to the flame and helping them grow as individuals. Because what we found with the book, The Millionaire Mind, here's another really helpful book, The Millionaire Mind, actually showed that when you give cash gifts to your children, it creates magnetic spending. If you give them a down payment for their house and they get into a house that maybe they can't afford or a neighborhood they can't afford, they'll have to buy the Range Rover and have to put their kids in private school and afford all these extracurricular sports that maybe they would have never had to pay for. And it creates this magnetic spending of this rat wheel versus putting money away for your children and grandchildren through a Roth IRA actually helps them for the future.
So when you meet with retirees, even pre-retirees, you walk them through all of these different strategies. Estate planning is one of them. Tax strategies is another. Tell us about the Swan Sleep Study.
Absolutely. So our Swan Sleep Study is a 1-hour complimentary visit where we sit down with a family and we answer all the questions that they can muster. After listening to the radio show for sometimes years, you might say, I have so many questions I'd like to ask Andrew one-on-one, and I'd love to ask his estate planning attorney, Scott Malik. And we would sit down and answer all of your questions. And then you will have a 2-page questionnaire that we'll go through. And then what I'll do is I'll give you a letter grade for various areas of your retirement. We'll look at maybe tax planning. We'll look at estate planning. We'll look at risk management and liability from creditors and predators out there. And we'll give you various grades on your retirement readiness. And it's really nice to show clients that they have nearly straight A's or they have 1B or 1C, that if they would just fix this, that I think they would be ready for retirement. And that is the permission slip I think we're all looking for, is to make sure that we have straight A's going into retirement. So if that sounds like something you would want to go through, our Swan Sleep Study, all you have to do is give our office a call at 1-800-848-8768. That's 1-800-848-8768.
And I want to guide you to their website. It's swan-capital.com. They have attorneys on hand to help with wills and trusts, power of attorney, tax-free insurance, all of those things. Scott Malik's right there in his office. And also, they help their clients retire well and finish well. And isn't that the goal for all of us? We want to have a remarkable retirement and feel confident that our money is going to last so we can finish well and pass on our legacy to our families. Thanks for listening. This is What Your Money Would Say with Andrew McNair. I'm Luann Fulmer. So, all right, aside from having solid financials with a retirement plan, there are some people who say that you need a non-financial retirement as well. A non-financial. So what would that look like, Andrew?
Finance is more than math, and that's why finance is an art and a skill, because if you just focus on the financials of retirement, you may not be mentally or physically prepared to retire, and that's why these are some very important lifestyle questions that I encourage you to reflect on. Number one, what will I retire to? Think about, for the last 30 to 40 years, you've built a routine getting prepared for work. And if you don't have a routine for retirement, you could end up spending a lot of time on the couch watching TV. Number two is, who am I? Once you stop working, how will you introduce yourself? That's such a great question, because every time I hear people in casual conversation, they say, what do you do for a living? Well, when you're retired, how do you fill in the blank? You can't say I was a retired, and now I'm a retired plumber. That's not how I want to answer it. I'm a dad. I'm a grandfather. Aww. These are the things that I want to identify with in retirement. You have to start thinking through that yourself. Next is, how will I meet people? Actually work. We talk about that. All right, we have a second work family. Well, that work family is going away, and you probably won't spend as much time with them. So work is an easy way to socialize, but retirement can be filled with loneliness if we don't tackle that intentionally. We don't build social networks in our church and civic groups after retirement. The next question is, where will I find a sense of worth? When we get raises and promotions and professional rewards, that fills our tank, because we have affirmations that are filling our tank to saying, hey, I'm making a difference. So I encourage our retirees, clients of ours, to say, don't stop learning. You can get certifications. You can actually go back to continuing education at the local university and continue to feed your brain and feed those affirmations that we all need. And then probably one of the last questions is, how can I strengthen those closest relationships to me? So many times we're on the go of working, and we maybe neglected spending time with our children, our grandchildren, our own spouse. And this is a perfect time to work not on our retirement, but work on our closest relationships.
So, Andrew, I understand those are very important questions to answer for your day-to-day living in retirement, but what about the financial side?
Well, those questions I can help you. Those are math questions. And so if you're trying to make sure that you're prepared for retirement, I want to give you a resource to make sure that you've checked off the checklist preparing for retirement. And all you have to do to get our retirement readiness checklist is go to whatyourmoneywouldSay.com. So the name of the show, whatyourmoneywouldSay.com/checklist. And if you go to whatyourmoneywouldSay.com/checklist, you can download this really helpful checklist to make sure that you've thought through all the financial questions of your retirement. Because if you have those lifestyle questions answered, now we have to move on to making sure that you've answered those financial questions.
All right. Well, there you have it. And we do have to take a quick break, but we're not done yet. We have so much more to share. Stick around for more of What Your Money Would Say with Andrew McNair. You are listening to What Your Money Would Say with Andrew McNair. I'm Lou Ann Fulmer. So happy to have you along with us. Andrew is president and CEO at Swan Capital right here on the Gulf Coast. And for over 15 years now, Andrew has been helping people just like you retire with confidence. And today he's offering to help you as well. So listen for the phone number, a chance to go in and meet with Andrew. Complimentary. So, all right, the Wall Street Journal, they've been saying that the hot new advantages in sports, Andrew, is being old. Being old. So, if you think about it, athletes like Tom Brady, Phil Mickelson, Venus Williams, they're all flipping the script on, the traditional mindset that youthful vigor and strength, that's what's going to prevail over wisdom and experience. However, Phil Mickelson has come along, and he is now the new oldest majors champion, and he won the 2021 PGA Championship at the age of 50. After winning, he told the media that age isn't a reason to not be able to succeed. Listen to this.
The point is that there's no reason why I or anybody else can't do it at a later age. It just takes a little bit more work.
Just a little bit more work is what he did, and he was able to beat the guys half his age in that championship game. So,
impressive.
Andrew, you help people get ready to retire every single day. What do you take from Phil's mindset?
Don't underestimate retiring and downshifting to a part-time job or starting a new part-time business. When you retire, you don't have to go from 60 miles per hour to zero overnight. You have 60 years of experience, and you can invest those 60 years of experience into a new venture. And maybe you want to go from a very stressful job to a less stressful job. And I can tell you that when you don't have to work for money any longer, you get treated differently, sadly, and you also also work differently. And you don't need to sell yourself short. You have 60 years of experience that can be, again, invested into a new opportunity, a new venture. And people would love to have that wisdom instead of someone that maybe shows up to work late and leaves work early. Like, unfortunately, some of my generation has built that reputation of doing. So don't sell yourself short.
Those millennials. Yeah, I always feel bad. I feel like you guys are getting a bad rap.
We do get a bad rap.
You know, Andrew, people are staying active, though, and even productive longer in the workforce, and they're carrying that mindset into retirement as well. So there's this 75-year-old grandfather from Chicago. He has become the oldest American to scale Mount Everest. We're talking up and down. So I want you to talk about what retirement looks like today for retirees versus what it looked like 25, 30 years ago.
Sure. I mean, my grandfather retired at the age of 50 and never worked a day after. I mean, it was an incredible retirement, but I think things are changing. One, because people's finances are not prepared to retire at 50 or 55. I think many times people say, I'd love to retire early. And I say, well, you're going to have to save 20% of their income. And they say, well, what's the next option? Well, the next option is you're going to have to retire a lot later in life. And I think one of the reasons is there's been such a big improvement in life expectancy over time. But a lot of people are underestimating how many years and how much money it takes to retire for a 40-year retirement. The average American turning age 65 today can expect to live 40% longer than someone who turned 65 in 1950. Is that not incredible?
Oh, my gosh.
That's because of modern medicine. We know what to eat and maybe what not to eat. And so what does that mean for retirement? That means if inflation is decreasing our buying power, you have a 20 to 30-year retirement on your hands. That means you could see prices double twice. And you said, Andrew, how do you calculate that? Well, take it like this. Use the rule of 72. If inflation is 4%, and the rule of 72 is 72 divided by 4. That means every 18 years, you should see prices double in your retirement. So again, you might see prices double in your retirement once or twice, which again, if you're buying a $5 Starbucks coffee, which again, a lot of you would say $5 for coffee. I remember when it was X, think about that being $15 in retirement. It's, again, something we have to plan for is inflation when we have a long life expectancy.
Right. And so how are you helping your clients deal with that and get serious about planning for the possibility of living a long time in retirement?
Well, this is morbid, but I ask clients, how old were your parents when they passed away? And many of them said, you know what, I haven't thought about that. I think my mother was, 85, and I think my father was 70. And then I asked them, did either of them smoke or have a different lifestyle than you? And they said, of course, my dad always smoked. And I said, okay, so that's potentially why he died at 70. Who knows how long he could have lived without smoking. So if we just did some rudimentary math and took 85 plus 70 and average that together, then divide by 2, that can give you maybe an average age of 77 if we combine your parents' DNA together. And then you add 5 to 7 years because of modern technology and the things that we are going to advance, hopefully in the medical realm over the next 5 to 10 years, you could live to almost 80 years old. And many clients say, you know what, for some reason, I just never thought I was going to live that long. So if you don't believe me, I highly encourage you go to Google and type in John Hancock Life Expectancy Calculator. Again, you go to Google and you type in John Hancock Life Expectancy Calculator, and they'll give you a calculation based on about 5 to 6 questions of how long they think that you may live.
Wow. Okay, we're all going to do that now. John Hancock Life Expectancy Calculator is all we have to put in Google. Okay. Wow.
Exactly.
So that's pretty incredible. I mean, it's all, like you said, it's a little creepy, but not necessarily.
Life's purpose can come from its finiteness, that it's not going to last forever, that you can live your life on purpose when you know that you only have so much time.
All right. So we do this show every week with one goal in mind, and that's to reach our listeners who don't have a financial advisor for retirement. Explain why that is so important, these very things that we're talking about, Andrew.
Well, I just don't think you go it alone. If we go back to Phil Mickelson, who is a professional golfer, he's one of the best golfers in the world. Did he do it by himself? He would tell you absolutely not. That little bit of work means that he has a driving coach. He has a putting coach. He has probably a life coach. He probably has a family coach. I mean, he probably has so many coaches, you probably wouldn't believe how much that bill is for him for all of those coaches. And why would someone that's already good at golf actually pay to get better? Because they understand that they can never be too rich, too smart, or too talented to get financial advice and life advice and career advice. We all can get better. And that's what I do for our clients. Even personally, managing people's retirements. I have some of my colleagues who I trust and respect look over my shoulder, make sure that I'm not missing anything. Because if you're so close to it, you can make mistakes. And also, if you only do this once in your lifetime, if let's say Phil was only going to go to one tournament in his lifetime, he would get a coach that's been there before him. And that's what we do for clients. We help people retire every day because they do it once in a lifetime. So if you're looking for a second set of eyes, a second opinion, I highly encourage you to give us a call at 1-800-848-8768. That's 1-800-848-8768. And we'll sit down with you one-on-one and answer your questions about retirement and then give you a report card on your retirement readiness.
And so their website also, swan-capital.com. Check him out there. There's all kinds of wonderful information there. And, of course, let Swan Capital and Andrew help you feel confident about your retirement nest egg. They want to help you set it up strategically so you can live a long, flourishing life in retirement. We thank you so much for joining us. This is What Your Money Would Say with Andrew McNair. I'm Luann Fulmer. We're talking about the fact that we're all living longer, and we need to love it. We do. We need to just love the fact and embrace that we are going to live a lot longer than previous generations. However, there are some things and some potential risks to our money that we need to be aware of. So, Andrew, why don't you tell us about that?
Well, there's a few of them. You got long-term healthcare costs, you have taxes, you have volatility. There's a few things that you have to keep in mind. If you're going to have a long life expectancy, that means that there are additional issues that someone that only lives to 65 wouldn't experience if they lived to 85.
Okay, so what goes into creating that strategy then that will address all these different risks to our money? That's got to be a challenging job.
Well, it is, and it can't be done alone. And luckily, I have a really great team here at Swan Capital, and we also have an estate planning attorney, and we bring CPAs in because when you look at taxes and estate planning, those comprehensive strategy that we build for clients, again, our clients are asking for more than just a portfolio. They don't want just statements. They've been looking this whole time to actually having a financial plan. And that's what we build for clients, is a financial plan that combines their tax planning through their estate planning, as well as liability from creditors and predators and their investments. And if we build this strategy together, there's a lot of synergy there. So Scott Malik is the estate planning attorney, and he can sit down with you and make sure that you have those basic legal documents like a power of attorney, a living will, a last will, or if you need a trust, he can talk to you about the details of that as well.
But, longevity is still considered one of the greatest threats because it's going to multiply all other risks in retirement. So one more time before we take a quick break, tell us how you help people understand that it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay.
Happy to do so.
Yeah.
The way you know it's going to be okay is when you have a written down income plan, a part of your existing financial plan that I've been talking about. Imagine, Luann, you go on a vacation and your spouse wants to make one more detour because it's a bucket list out there. And you want to make that detour, but again, your spouse says, honey, I don't think we have enough gas to get there. And you say, well, I'm not walking to that bucket list item. So you abandon that bucket list item. That happens in retirement every day for people because they think, I just don't know if I have enough money to do that Viking cruise, to take that Alaskan vacation. And that's some of the best joys of my job and my career is sitting down with families and saying, no, you have plenty of gas in the tank. We have this written down income plan that shows you that you're not going to run out of gas. So you can take that detour and go see that bucket list item. And I've had so many spouses in our conference room actually elbow their spouse and say, he said we could spend more money. I love that banter between couples, and to see that they're actually opening their eyes, that they actually have more money. They have plenty in the gas tank. And if you're listening, you say, Andrew, I want to make sure that we don't run out of gas. I want to make sure that I can get a permission slip to go farther and take that detour. Give us a call at 1-800-848-8768. That's 1-800-848-8768, and we'll walk you through your income plan to make sure and show you that you're not going to run out of gas.
So we know longevity is considered a really big risk to retirement income, but we want to change that narrative and embrace it instead of worrying about it. We're going to have more on that with Andrew when we come back. This is What Your Money Would Say with Andrew McNair. You are listening to What Your Money Would Say. I'm Lou Ann Fulmer here with Andrew McNair. He's president and CEO at Swan Capital. And you've probably seen Andrew on television. He's appeared on Fox Business and Market Watch regarding financial planning, of course. And also, he's written some things on Kiplinger's. He has an ongoing blog, a Swan blog on his website as well. That's swan-capital.com. And today, Andrew is sharing with you his wisdom about planning for retirement. So, okay, we've been talking about the fact that we're all living longer. There's a lot of things to think about, and we also should embrace the fact that we're living longer too. Even though the biggest risk to your retirement income is going to be the fact that you're living a long time. So there was this contributor on Forbes, and they came up, Andrew, with this snarky list for the best ways to shorten your lifespan. Okay, so you don't run out of money. I thought this would be kind of fun to talk about. So here's some of the suggestions. Minimize your physical activity. Avoid a plant-based diet at all costs. No salads. Don't eat any vegetables. Keep to yourself. Watch a lot of TV. And get upset over things that you can't control. So obviously we don't want to take that approach, but we don't want to stop living because we're worried about our money. We need to embrace the idea instead of dreading that we're all living longer. So tell us how you help people plan for a longer life in retirement.
Yeah, I think, yikes, Luann. I feel like I know people that live by those rules.
Oh, yeah. Don't watch TV.
Like that they've picked that list up and they thought that was the way to live. So the way we help people have a great long life into retirement is actually counterintuitive. We actually front load the retirement. And what I mean by that is many times the first 10 years of your retirement are the best years of your retirement. So we kind of push our clients into the pool because we want them to jump into retirement with both feet going in and wanting to do all their bucket list items in the first 10 years because you have the time, the health, and the freedom and the money to do it. When you're 88 years old, you're not going to be spending as much as when you were potentially 68 and still traveling. So it's very important that we front load your retirement and make sure that you do all those bucket list items while you're still healthy and able before you have a hip surgery or a second knee surgery that really slows you down. You want to go out and live those bucket list items before you actually have any health issues.
Right. That's so true. And so many people, I just hate it when people retire and they're just starting to do their bucket list and then a stupid health issue comes along,
That's right.
So many of us, though, think, oh, I'm healthy. I take care of myself. I'm going to be all right in retirement. Maybe health care is going to be a little lower. Fidelity tells us otherwise. They said the average 65-year-old couple is going to spend about $300,000 on retirement, not including long-term care. And I know health care is one of the things you tackle when you're trying to help your retirees plan out retirement, right?
We have to. I mean, we love giving advice to clients to help them, actually have some ease because that is a big fear in retirement is how am I going to afford health insurance? How am I going to be able to pay any medical expenses in my retirement? So that's why we talk extensively with our clients about Medicare supplements and the difference between Medicare Advantage plans. Again, Medicare Advantage plans sound really good initially because the cost is very low or non-existent. But when you look at Medicare supplements, they actually basically cover you on almost the majority of any out-of-pocket expenses. And that's the beauty of the Medicare supplement is you are paying a premium every month in addition to your Medicare Part B. But again, you don't have as many copays. You don't have to worry about having a percentage of that back surgery that you have to pay for. And that's why it's so important to understand your Medicare options. And that's why we shop various carriers to make sure that we can get the lowest premiums for our clients because it is a commoditized product, but we want to make sure we get clients the coverage they need, but also make sure they pay as little as possible.
Right. And that's the thing, right? Like you just said, we shop for them because it's the same thing everywhere. It's just the price you're going to pay for it, right, for Medicare.
So if you're turning 65 and you think, Andrew, how much will my Medicare supplement be? Give us a call. I mean, we're happy to answer questions about your Medicare as well as find answers. If you ask us something that stumps us, we'll go looking for that answer for you. But we can absolutely shop those Medicare supplements, make sure you get the lowest price. All you have to do is call 1-800-848-8768. That's 1-800-848-8768. We all need some help with healthcare because it can be so complex.
Right. And swan-capital.com, head to their website. Check them out there. They would love to help you with some strategies to plan for one of your biggest expenses in retirement. We thank you so much for joining us. This is What Your Money Would Say with Andrew McNair. I'm Lou Ann Fulmer. So we know living longer in retirement means a lot more years of paying taxes. We know taxes are probably not going to stay where they are, just going to kind of fluctuate throughout a retirement. What is the potential impact that taxes has on a retirement over time, Andrew?
Well, I want to always compare a taxable retirement to a tax-free retirement. If you put all of your money into a brokerage account, and I've seen this from time to time, that's families that are putting their money after they've already paid taxes into an account, a brokerage that is taxable. And as that account is earning dividends, they're paying taxes for decades on the income that is being generated from the brokerage account. Compare that to having it all in a Roth IRA or something that's tax-free, where all the dividends coming out of the Roth IRA are tax-free, paying no taxes, meaning that you paid taxes once when you made the money, but now that's in the Roth IRA, you get all the tax-free benefits from it. And that's where we help clients go from taxable brokerage accounts to tax-free Roth 401ks, Roth IRAs. That's one strategy. Also, Luann, there are so many families out there that buy a stock. Let's say I'll just pick on one company. They buy GE at $10 and it goes through the roof and now it's worth $30. But they don't sell GE because it would be a taxable gain. They're actually making investment decisions based on taxes alone. And sadly, here's a statistic that you need to realize if you're investing in individual stocks, that the average life expectancy of an S&P 500 company is now only 18 years. That means if you live 20 to 30 years in retirement, you're going to watch actually large S&P 500 public companies go out of business and be clobbered by some competitor that is being born in a basement today. And that's why it's important not to make your investment decisions solely because of taxation.
Well, that's a great point right there. Very, very good. Now, I have a question for you. You know, we all have our 401ks and our IRAs. How much of that should we, I'm 62. My husband's right behind me, 61. And this isn't just for me. This is just in general. How much should we be trying to switch over to a Roth?
Well, that is a great question. We help clients first off maximize their match so they get their match. The match always typically goes into the traditional part of their 401k. And then what we do is anything above that match, then we start funding the Roth IRA or the Roth 401k as much as possible. So again, first goal is to get your match. Second goal is to maximize your Roth IRA and then come back to the Roth 401k if that's an option for you.
Yeah. Great sort of rule to follow.
Absolutely.
So, we're talking about how long retirements are lasting today, 20, 30, even 40 years. Can you ever be too young to start thinking about retirement planning?
Instead of sooner the better, I always actually say sooner the greater. And we actually have this savings chart that we love to share with our kids and their grandchildren because wealth is not taught in school. If they taught it at Tate's high school where I went to high school, I must have missed the class. Therefore, it's up to you to teach your kids and your grandchildren what they have to do and how they can be prepared. And the first thing you teach them is not to spend their whole dollar on themselves. And that starts even with allowances. Don't spend the whole dollar on yourself. Luann, 94% of America is dependent upon the federal government. 94% are dependent on the federal government in some way, like Social Security. So if you want to live like the 1%, or you want your children or grandchildren to live like the 1%, that means they have to walk away from the 94%. And this is what 94% or more of America is doing right now. They spend 92% of their income on themselves. They save only 6%, and they give 2% or less to charity. And we have to teach our kids to flip the script, to start giving away 10%, saving 20%, and spending the remaining 70% on themselves. So I highly encourage you, if you're listening and you have children and you have grandchildren, you want to teach them some of these principles, I'd love to share with you a really great resource. It's a resource that we put together that shows someone that is making $50,000 a year today and making an 8% return. It is not a crazy example. $50,000 of income at an 8% return. The difference between starting at 20 versus 30 costs that family millions of dollars for retirement. And that doesn't have to be your children or your grandchildren's story. So I highly encourage you to go to our website at whatyourmoneywouldSay.com/save more. That's whatyourmoneywouldSay.com/save more, and it'll give you that sooner the greater savings chart.
I love that, sooner the greater. And man, I wish my husband and I would have had this. We just, we look at our assets right now and we just roll our eyes at ourselves, because back when my husband was making the most money he'd ever made, we were saving $50 a month, Andrew, and just spending. We were spending everything. We were spending 92% of our income,
Sure,
barely
it's not
giving
taught in
any,
schools.
barely giving anything to the church, which was we're just so
We all could have
embarrassed.
done better.
So embarrassed.
That's why we got to make a ripple for the next legacy.
Exactly.
So if you're listening, you say, Andrew, but I got to make sure that I retire. I got to make sure that me and my spouse are going to have that retirement that lasts for 30 to 40 years potentially. How do we make sure that our income plan is going to get us through to the end? That's where we sit down with families on a one-on-one visit that we like to call the sleep study, to make sure that you can hopefully sleep well at night in retirement. That's our goal for every family, of helping them try to sleep well at night in retirement. And so the sleep study is retirement report card for your retirement, to give you hopefully straight A's across the board, that you're prepared for estate planning, tax planning, health care in retirement. So to go through that Swan sleep study, all you have to do is call 1-800-848-8768. That's 1-800-848-8768.
Hey, Andrew, tell us where you're located.
Sure. So if you're saying, where do I show up on that Swan Sleep Study? Well, we have two offices that are conveniently located, one in Daphne. So for anyone that's in the Spanish Fort, Fairhope area, Gulf Shores, they can drive up to our Daphne office. And I love our Daphne office because it's right next to Moe's Southwest, so we can have a nice burrito, and then you can come over and have a meeting with us to go through that sleep study. So again, that's right across from the Daphne Police Department, off the main highway. And then we have our office in downtown Pensacola. So if you're in the Pensacola area, you maybe live in Milton or Pace, or you grew up in Cantonment like I did, you can come down to downtown Pensacola, and we're right off Balin. We're really close to Palafox Street. We bought this home that's over 100 years old that we restored, and that's where headquarters is, and that's where we spend a lot of our time building financial plans for our clients and meeting with those families to build out that sleep study.
All right. That number again to call Andrew, 800-848-8768.